So the New Orleans Pelicans are bad. And are they bad because of injuries or just bad in general is a question that I think you can debate. And in my opinion, it is more because of injuries than anything else. But I don't believe that this Pelicans roster, even fully healthy, would have ever been a serious contender in the Western Conference. They would have been a playoff team, I think. But I don't think they would have been a true contender to the top teams in the West. With that being said, with all the injuries, they are now, after tonight's game, losing to the Hawks, 4-17, I believe. Is that what the record is? Let me check real quickly. Yeah, 4-18, even worse. Their season is over, like super duper over. It is absolutely done. We are a quarter of the way through the season, and the Pelicans can ride it up, pack it away, move on to next year, which means they have to figure out ways to improve this roster. And number one, Brandon Ingram is going to be traded, and going to be traded, I would think, I don't know if relatively soon is true, but he will 100% be traded before the trade deadline. I think there's going to be a team that is going to talk themselves into Brandon Ingram, considering he's actually having a pretty good year. And I do want to talk about the Pelicans' future more in this video, not a team that I've touched on at all on this channel so far this season. So I want to talk about the Pelicans a bit. Before we hop into it, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Trying to get to the 1,000 subscriber mark on the channel. I'm uploading multiple times a day, pretty much every single day. Would really appreciate it if y'all do subscribe. Trying to get monetized. So make sure y'all subscribe if you haven't. Without further ado, let's talk about New Orleans. So, rough loss tonight against the Hawks. Admittedly, the Hawks have been playing pretty good basketball as of late, but the Hawks shot 26% from three. We're down, only 1.5 actually. Second half wasn't great. And to be fair, the Pelicans actually had some guys healthy tonight. CJ McCollum's back. DeJounte Murray was awful, 2 of 15, 1 of 7 from three. That is gross. But as a whole, even with a couple guys back, there's still a very injured roster, missing multiple of their most important pieces. Guys like, obviously, Zion. Brandon Ingram missed this game for tendonitis, I guess. Obviously, Jordan Hawkins hasn't played barely at all this season, and I'm sure there's more injuries. Jose Alvarado's hurt. There's more guys that I'm missing as well. But this is a team that in the first... Oh, Herb Jones. There you go. Another guy who's a crucial piece to this team who hasn't played. Look, this is a team that even if they were fully healthy, they don't really have a center, and that's something that they probably need to figure out. But at this point for this season, the goal should just be tank, 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 tank. You could pretty easily, I think, realistically, with the way that things are setting up and the fact that, look at this. I pulled up Tankathon to see the remaining strength of schedule for the Pelicans. They have the third hardest remaining strength of schedule in the entire league. And I get that they're in the West, and pretty much all the teams at the top of this list are Western Conference teams. But I mean, good Lord, it just does not get any easier for this team. This could very easily be an absolute masterclass of a tanking season, though. Because, look, let's talk about Brandon Ingram and his trade value. I get that this summer they couldn't get him, just trade him for a bag of chips. But there is going to be some team that on an expiring contract for a guy like Brandon Ingram, who is as big of a scorer as he is. I mean, when you look at the numbers this season, he's having himself a really solid year. 23, 5.5, 5.5 on pretty decent efficiency, right in line with his career averages. There's going to be somebody out there that talks themselves into a wing scorer with the caliber of talent that Brandon Ingram has and is going to give up a first-round pick for him. I really do believe that. I think they're going to be able to get actual value out of Brandon Ingram at some point this trade deadline. And for a team that already has a decent chunk of assets and could very easily find themselves with a top 5 pick, realistically, they should find themselves with a top 5 pick if they don't screw up this tanking process. This is a team that could very easily find themselves in a position to add more assets by trading Brandon Ingram, get his salary off the books, give them financial flexibility this summer and draft pick flexibility this summer, and find themselves in a position to try to reload and try to, I don't know if recontend is the right word, but rebuild this roster to where they're able to be more competitive on a night-to-night basis in the Western Conference. Look, I know trusting Zion to be healthy is a scary proposition in the first place, but when he's healthy, he's a very talented player, as proven to be such for his career. They have real good role players. I think CJ and DeJounte are really good guards. They could find a big and find some more depth. This is going to be a fine team because realistically, depth wasn't the issue last year. They've just been so handcuffed and destroyed by injuries. You can't expect that to happen again next season. You know what I mean? But look, when you look at the standings, they're last in the West, worse than the Jazz. They're right there with the Jazz and the Wizards as the worst teams in the league. And I mean, to get a top 4 worst record, they're probably going to have to be worse than the Trailblazers. They're going to have to be worse than the Raptors. I don't think they're going to be worse than the Sixers, despite how bad the Sixers have been, because I think the Sixers are going to win enough games to not be a bottom 4 team. And I mean, they have a head start over teams that might tank, like the Bulls and the Nets. They have a several game lead already there. I think they could very realistically finish with a top 4 pick, or a bottom 4 record, which would give them the tied for the highest chance of odds to get Cooper Flagg. And even if they don't get Cooper Flagg, there is so much talent in this draft. I mean, this is one of the deepest and most talented drafts we've ever seen ever in the NBA, honestly. And so with that being the case, with the amount of assets that they have right now, I mean, they have a top 4 protected Milwaukee pick that will convey this year, I believe, another 2025 first. That's their own, obviously. They got a pick swap next year with Milwaukee, and they own their pick as well next year. They got 2077 unprotected from Milwaukee. Like, they have picks these next few years. Haven't lost much in terms of draft assets and have a couple extra for an extra first and an extra pick swap. But realistically, I mean, you get some assets out of Brandon Ingram and you get a super high pick, and all of a sudden you have a serious chance to reload this roster with amazing high level talent. And I think this things could be worse in New Orleans. You know what I mean? Well, the unfortunate part for them is that they play in the Western Conference. If they were in the East, they would be in a really decent spot right now, because yes, this season's still over, even if they're in the East for the most part, right? But their path to contention seems much more simple, whereas in the West you have 11 or 12 teams that are in an absolute dogfight just trying to figure out who the teams in the play-in are going to be. I mean, it's just not an easy spot to be in for the Pelicans, but this is a team that played Phoenix super tough a couple years ago. Way back when Phoenix was the 1 seed. I believe that would have been 3 seasons ago at this point. 2 seasons ago, I believe they missed the playoffs. Last year they played a competitive, started off competitive, but ultimately not that competitive series against admittedly a really good Thunder team. They're a team that has shown the ability to get a little bit close, but they haven't really gotten over that threshold and made a serious run in the playoffs into that third round, try to get to the conference finals, make a run into finals. And they're going to have to reload this roster to do that. But I feel like this year, being as bad as it has been so far for the Pelicans, might actually wind up being a blessing in disguise, because it gives them, again, that opportunity for a game-changing player, a franchise-altering guy in the top tier of this year's draft. And it will give them serious flexibility financially and asset-wise as well to try to make different moves this summer to find the right ways to improve this team. Now, what does that look like right now? I don't really know. I haven't done a ton of off-season prep at this point. We're still early in this season. But at some point, I'm sure we'll talk more about that, and I would 100% have to say that you got to expect in the near future that Brandon Ingram is going to get traded. He just signed with Clutch Sports, has new representation. That feels like another move to figure out how to facilitate a trade. Remember who owns Clutch Sports, by the way. Remember who the guy behind Clutch Sports is, Maverick Carter, Ron's bestie. Wouldn't be shocked to see him end up in LA. Now, do I think he helps LA that much? Not really. Minnesota seems like a decent area for him to go, a team that wants to contend this year. He'd be a 1-year rental. I could see that. I have a hard time expecting them to give up a first-round pick, but I don't think they really have the assets for it anyway because of the Gobert trade. But I think that's another feasible place for him. I'm sure there's a bunch of other teams that I'm overlooking that would be Brandon Ingram options, but will be interesting to see, no doubt about it, what happens in the near future with him. And following this Pelicans team should be interesting just to see if they truly commit to the tank, which, again, I truly believe they should. Zion just shouldn't play again this season, to be honest. I know he's missed so many games already, but you got to figure out a way to get him to get in shape, stay in shape, heal his body, build his muscles, get to where he can, not tendon muscles. You got to get stuff healed and healthier so that he can play a sustained NBA season at a high level. And this could really wind up being a blessing in disguise for the Pelicans this disastrous year. We'll have to wait and see. But expect BI to be moved soon. So with that being said, that's going to do it for this video. I hope y'all did enjoy. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe, and I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon. I appreciate y'all. Peace.